Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. This is another Twitch recap from last Sunday's live show where we were finishing out our work on the big Perseus concept. Our launch windows, especially for Mars, where we're planning to dispatch a crew this window, are drawing uncomfortably close, and not having this vehicle ready to go is kind of getting to me. So I did build the capsule portion of it off stream, and we did kind of go over it a little bit. It is intended to ferry 6 crew to Venus or Mars. That is its intention right now. We have kind of rolled back from integrating the service module into the recovered part of the spacecraft, and instead just focused on integrating the habitation module into one singular spacecraft. It does come with some reduction in mass in that you don't need redundant space for 6 crew spread across the recoverable portion and the habitat module. It's all just folded into one, and so this is a pretty good look at our crew slash habitat module. Like I said before, it is intended to ferry 6 crew around with plenty of extra room for them to mill about, play with the exercise bike, or on the good old Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. It's almost 1990. They're probably still using a brick Game Boy, but our technology in this is a little different than actual timeline. Anyway, the service module below it, we should talk about that just a little bit, is kerosene liquid oxygen. Yeah, being pushed around by a N1 Block 5 engine, which I think is a cluster of NK33 engines. It does have 12 ignitions, per its original part file, and that is just about the absolute minimum I will go to as far as limited ignitions for a deep space vessel such as this. Our tonnage is pretty heavy. I think we were coming in at someplace close to 260, 275 some odd tons, and we're just getting the last little bits of life support distribution figured out. I have made some additional changes to this vehicle after the stream, but we will get to those in a future episode. Since it was a special Sunday and I could live stream for longer, this episode will be a little bit different than other live stream recaps have been in the past, in that we're going to cover a lot more material in a lot shorter of a time. So I have actually cut out most of the time spent in the VAB and focused instead just on the actual in-game testing as far as how these systems will go. So there will be not a whole lot of talking on what changes were made and when. Just that you'll see the testing phases, and when things go wrong, they go wrong pretty obviously, and we do make a few changes to accommodate for that. But anyway, back to the service module. 6 crew, support for a little more than a year. I did end up shifting the entire burden of life support into the crew section, so as to avoid transferring resources and kind of limit redundant parts. Really, I guess redundant procedural tanks as far as where things can go. We had the room to put all this stuff, so we might as well consolidate it as much as humanly possible. Other than some aesthetic changes to the service module itself, this is pretty much the flight-ready vehicle as far as how things will go. Now, our very first step in getting this thing flight rated was to provide a launch abort system, which proved way more difficult than it had any right to do whatsoever. Even going with a traditional tower, as I have done on all of my other crewed vehicle launchers, proved a little excessive given the SRBs we have access to. We did at some point try to utilize procedural SRBs, but they are glitched in KSP 1.1.3. It's a pricing issue, so basically if you try to make a specific procedural SRB, and I don't know at what step they switch to it, but at some point the pricing goes to not a number, and so if you try to build it, it basically ruins the entire craft file. So we did not save at any point when we had a procedural SRB installed and attached, because it would have ruined all of this work, and I was really not willing to go through with that. So we'll set up our initial abort procedure that will be going through more than a few times on here trying to get a system that works, considering how much tonnage we might have to pull off a full launch vehicle. It is no small feat to consider how many rather inefficient SRBs are going to need to be employed to pull this thing safely away from a stack and get it off to the side and away from impending explosions and death. But it is a necessary function of getting this thing flight ready. So anyway, I'm going to turn you over to old me live during the broadcast. Okay, the sun is at a less than optimal angle. Are we showing draw on the batteries? No. We've got 6 RTGs, and I'm really shocked that's enough to keep up with all of the crew thingies that we have going on here. Let's see if the... Why are the rest of the RCS ports firing? They do not look like they are. And that upsets me some, because I know we have pressurized tanks with fuel in them, or do we? Because I moved a bunch of the fuel around. Yeah, the ones on the bottom are definitely firing. Everything on the top is not. Great. All right, let's test for this abort. Nope. Parachutes deploy! Good job. Everyone survived. Isn't that what matters? Human person, how's it going? Alright, revert Vab. That was the saddest abort test I've ever seen. Oh, I didn't check to see why the upper thrusters weren't firing. That would be a good thing to do. Ready? Well, 3, 2, 1, abort. That's much better. Come on, parachutes. Parachutes, parachutes, parachutes. Oh, Jesus. I think on episode 180. Oh, wow. What's the thrust on those early career SRBs? Might use them instead of a low fuel load instead. It did work. Except for the deployment on the parachute being so incredibly sluggish. Smiles, he says. Alright. I forgot to check the RCS. Again. Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1, abort. Going down. Yeah, well. That worked out real well. The parachute's deployed before it hit the ground. Yeah, you know, about par for the course. The same amount of equipment survived. Although we did destroy a little bit more of our parent rocket this time. Revert, Vab, excellent. I guess you don't want ejection seats on passenger planes because you don't want to pack in that much high-burning explosives to something you're just going to let regular people toy around with. Alright. Backspace? Oh, this is... Burn, you 4 sad rockets, burn! Again with the none parachutes happening. It hurt, but all the same stuff survived. We should probably take the fuel down. So I guess the only staging that should be left after we fire the abort would be to jettison the tower. We're going to try to jettison the tower this time. So, alright, and abort. Tower's off. And yeah, we'd be almost clear of the stack. Parachutes. Not really a thing. There they are. Way to go, parachutes. Way to go. I am really, really, really ready to call this flippin' good enough. Alright, loading in. There we go. Tower away. Oh god! They slammed right into the crew cabin. And as the smoke clears, no one is dead. I guess we missed one, huh? Oh my god, repeat. Alright, well, what's our electric draw looking like? We are topped off, so there's no point in testing the solar panels because we have too many RTGs. Fine. Engine test. Oh boy. Where is smokescreen? Oh boy. That's super interesting. Because we totally don't need that at all. More explosions, that's cool. Oh, good. That cleared all that out. Pegged, pegged. Okay, clear. Fix scale dot 2, really? No, I don't want to mess with this right now, because I've forgotten how, honestly. That's, okay, we're just sitting here. It happened too fast. And we're getting very interesting lighting effects way up here, so I wonder how dumb this plume is actually being, because that's the worst. That plume needs configuration pretty bad. Alright, good. Those will clear. Yeah, 1 out of 3 ain't bad. That's fine. And that's that. We know that decoupler works because we've been doing that for our abort sequencing. And other than that, I think we're solid. All those tests worked, other than we missed a set motor. There we go. And we are in orbit with far too much stuff. SAS is on, RCS is on. Alright, no, I want to turn your thrusters off. Where's that? Disable RCS. Alright, well, let's fire off the tower. Perfect. Set throttle to 0, activate our engine, activate 1 billion thrusters, stage off our panels. I thought I disabled your ports, homie. Disable RCS port. Okay. All the thrusters except for the nose thrusters are working. Nope, they are working. They're just angled straight ahead. That's interesting. Okay. I can live with that. How's our electric draw? That was the other thing we needed to test. Yep, we are drawing power. Perfect, but means the RTGs are supplemental as they are supposed to be. Extend, extend, extend. And, I mean, here's our spacecraft in its deployed configuration. I'm actually not sad about this. 4,154 meters per second. We do have eligibility. Oh, all of the eligibility. Although, why these thrusters are fire? Oh, I guess they're trying to level us into something. So, I don't know, chat. Opinions? Is it stupid? Should I... Aha. Very, very little roll control. I guess that's what I thought I was putting those thrusters on there for, but I needed to flip them around if they're going to have... Oh, wait, yeah, no, that one's firing. That one's not. That one should be. Why do only 2 of those thrusters fire with roll? Those thrusters do work, but not with roll. Very interesting. I don't want to spend a lot of time with RCS build aid on this thing. For what reasons should be obvious, but I guess we need to angle these better so that they give us better pitch authority. That's the one thing we're lacking there. And I guess all the thruster ports fire in opposite the manners I thought they would, but I wonder how usable those ports are going to be. Definitely not for our standard resupply pods, but something. Too close to the central axis. I mean, for roll control, it shouldn't matter where on the how close to central axis they are. And the fact that the only 2 thrusters that are firing with roll control are on one side of the spacecraft, but we know those 2 work also, seems very odd to me. Yeah, like, they all should be active for everything. Always full action. I don't know what that means, but does that mean it fires no matter what? No, it certainly does not. It's interesting, though. Alright, well, let's, how does this, yeah, very stable. Ignition. Yay! See, these should be way up in the engine bell. Oh, wow, that worked. Yeah, I keep forgetting we have a really high thrust engine now, so 7 minutes of runtime delivering almost, a little more than 4 kilometers per second is going to give you a very shallow periapsis very, very quickly. And oh boy, we are about to hit Atmo, so let's use another ignition. Nope, vapor and feed lines. How about that? Come on, go green. Go green, you big heavy bastard. I don't want to come down this steeply. Thrusters will stop working if you look at them the wrong way. Oh, jeez. Yeah. Well, come on, come on, come on. Oh boy, the ullage on this thing. You thought the spinning around would stabilize this engine a bit? And just the laying on the thrusters. How much fuel have we chewed through, I wonder? Not even draining from that tank yet. I guess these are... Yeah, pulling a little bit from there. How about you guys? Is this one almost empty? No, we have probably way more thruster fuel than we need. Why are you still unstable? Oh, we only got 300 more meters to fall. Please? I thought I had a... Yeah, I do have a thruster port down there. That's funny. It shares an angle with that one. So I guess we can invert that one. Maybe. It's still unstable. That's really interesting. I thought the about facing on it would correct for that. They noticed after loading your Jupiter-bound orbiter, thrusters on one side stopped working. Turned out it was because deploying a magnetometer boom broke something. After retracting the magnetometer and reloading, all thrusters worked properly. Oh wow. Yeah, I guess it's however KSP computes the center of mass is going to affect how thrusters fire and where they fire and how. Seriously, we're still unstable. I definitely want to run a test where I can get this engine to fire more than once. But it looks like we're doing a full weight, high angle, absolutely terrible reentry test because we are already atmospheric. Ullage Simulator 2019. Still unstable. That is unbelievable. I mean, we're causing notable shift in our apoapsis and periapsis here. So, like, this fuel should be settled. Very easily should be very settled by now. How's our electric charge? Topped off. That's good. Yesterday, you had a creative moment and wrote a script for a YouTube video. It'd be the kind of video with animated characters where you reveal a lot of stuff about yourself. It's a good script, but I'm not sure if I'm going to share most of the things I wrote there. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll say content like that on YouTube is really personal. And I don't know if brave is the right word, but yeah, I don't blame you. I tend not to want to share very many details about lots of things also. But that's the fun thing about having anonymity on the internet. You can be overly personal without being actually personal. It's still unstable. I wonder if this engine is ever actually eligible at all, but we're going to ditch it. Pull ourselves away. And one very quick test before we hit atmosphere, just to see what kind of power draw we're experiencing with our reserve panels deployed. Oh yeah, that's good to know, thank you. So at .27 draw, we're probably not actually optimized, so that's okay. No, yes. Can you be ullaged now? All of a sudden it fires and slams into you. Also very sensible if you don't put the RCS thrusters in symmetry mode, but manually one by one or two after two. Really? Oh god, I would screw that up so bad. Heat shielded at Mars, do that all the time. Yeah, still unstable. I'm wondering about the actual reliability of this engine, and that makes me real mad. Real mad. And we can't ullage the engine. All these ignitions don't do us any good. Still unstable. You know what? I'm done with you. We'll test you on the launch pad later. Right now, we need to face into retrograde. Let's see, this thing maneuvers quite well all on its own, and that does make me very happy, but we're going to come in super spicy. Is our vessel mass about 50 tons? We should be able to handle that without too much issue. Although I do wonder if those panels are going to get burnt off, because they are actually what physically attaches the heat shield to the rest of the spacecraft. So this is a good test to run. We could just make the heat shield bigger and solve that problem, but man, that's going to add much more weight. Alright, so since you're coming in high G-load anyway, why don't you just hold retrograde and let's goopify this crew. Please and thank you. Alright, let's go ahead and retract. Tracked. Eyes on the service module, because that engine wouldn't light, so hopefully it'll explode first. It's making a duck face. The fairing side's supposed to burn off. No, they are not. And this is a detail I've just noticed now, because it's the first time I've actually flown this particular design. So yeah, the heat shield should probably be bigger to accommodate those fairing sides. If they burn off, yeah, I mean, well, we'll know about it. Because everyone in the simulation will then die. Horribly. I'm really confused as to why that engine would not, for anything, ullage. Maybe, I don't know. If we pressurize the tank, if we make it service module, will that affect its ability to ullage? Because I think that entire thing is balloon tanks. I mean, other than the life support and the thruster fuel stuff. We actually should have enough thruster authority to pitch a little above retrograde and maybe spare the crew some of this G-load. But for this test, we're just going to let it come in straight retrograde. As high a G-loading, as high a temp loading as we can put on the spacecraft to see if it's going to explode violently. At least in Time Warp, we have very good roll control. Could bring out those thruster ports where you don't have to lose half of your side pieces. Well, yeah, but I like losing half of the side pieces. It's the whole appeal of the spacecraft. I noticed it had 12 ignition and it bamboozled it. Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not actually supposed to have 12 ignitions and that's what's causing an issue. KSP is getting angry about that particular setup. Bye-bye. Useless engine. We're going to fire it a bunch on the ground and see if those ignitions actually are worth anything at all, or if it's messing with my head. Looks like, oh, I was going to say, some part of it still survived. Nope, there it goes. There should be lots of little goodies there to explode still. Yep. Now they're scattering and shotgunning all over the place. There shouldn't be enough air at this altitude to hear the explosion that quickly. Alright, now we're getting into the good stuff. I'll say so far no heat warnings. Predictable. 4,900 worth of ablator to get rid of. Not that this means it will survive interplanetary Aero capture, but it's a good first step. It won't survive this, and it definitely won't. Fuel stability is very random. You notice some engines stay very stable all the time, others become very unstable at the moment they feel microgravity. Well, that's good. That's exactly the kind of engine we want for an interplanetary spacecraft. Something that will probably not work forever, or whenever you need it to. I feel like maybe these structural panels should have a blader on them, for as much of a beating as they're taking, but the rest of the spacecraft is absolutely safe. Nothing in that plasma trail. That's a good angle. There we go. Hey, not bad. It's actually doing quite well. So there will be a full-scale test. It's actually cheaper to just build one, slingshot it around the moon, and then have it re-enter. We're going to try to do that without a crew. Landing the sun. It's a procedural part, so I don't really get to control it. But depending on how this goes, we may scale that back, strip some ablator from it, save some tonnage. We only need it to work once. And I think however much we burn off for this low Earth orbit, and this is really low Earth orbit re-entry, we'll probably triple it, maybe quadruple it, and then do an all-up test. That we can save a whole lot of tonnage by getting rid of a bunch of ablator. And typically when I send stuff to Mars to aero capture, like it needs very little ablator because there just isn't enough atmosphere there to actually burn stuff off, so I think the most on one of these heat shields I've ever used, at least of this size, was about 3/4 of it aero capturing Venus. So I know we can get rid of some, we just need to know how much. Wow. 29 kilometers actual, 2,200 meters per second. I'd say they're done and safe. We only lost 90 ablator. So, actually, maybe we'll keep 1,000 of it and get rid of the rest. Or should we keep 2,000, just get rid of half of it? Because that seems way more sensible. Oh, should probably arm some parachutes, huh? So if this thing actually does a fully loaded abort and comes home completely full... Oh, there's parachutes tucked in these fairings. I'm really dumb. I don't know if these parachutes are going to deploy. We might have to move them. Arm parachutes to an action group would be a really good idea. Well, those should be fine. I think the big ones are in here. No. Arm. Arm. Is that all of them? Did I go all the way around? Arm. Yep. All chutes are blue. Here we go. Strongly advise against meddling with the amount of ablator on a crew vehicle. Costs you the lives of 3 astronauts in your RP-0 save. I'm tempted very much to agree. Alright, drogues are out. But I think we're carrying way too much. 4,700 or 4,900 total. Even for interplanetary return on what's essentially a 60-ton vehicle. We can see how it goes. Alright, drogues in full deploy, that's good. I mean, that's why we test. Why is that crew cabin staring at me? Maybe it likes you. Duck face. Alright, and I think our next bit isn't until about 2,500 meters. Nope, I was wrong. Maybe it's 1,700 meters? Okay. Parachutes will not deploy while stowed in a fairing. Turns out. Hey, oxygen's running out. Looks like the robotics gnome transformer ready to be deployed and start killing people. Revert to the VAB. Well, alright. It's a feature. Alright. Let's just turn SAS on for no real reason. RCS. Alright then, that's fine too. Okay, let's bring our engine down here. Stage it in. Throttle it up. Solid light. Excellent. Ignition off. Very stable. Ignition. God, I want to fix this plume. It looks so sad. Yeah, consistent ignitions the whole time. Alright, and, you know, while we're here, abort. Okay, good, all the panels still went. Hey, parachutes! And they would totally be alive had they not landed on the edge. Look at that! Yay! That was a much, much, much better abort. Out now to the launch pad where we have our Type 3 prototype, and we have done some launch testing with this vehicle before, so it's really just to see how well our new crewed vehicle will integrate to the launch vehicle, and what kind of Delta V figures we will be seeing as we get to space. Now, I sped this up because it was more of a seconds per frame than frame per second, due to our extraordinarily high part count at liftoff, but our Type 3 prototype vehicle did perform pretty well, all things considered. Now, I did make the mistake at some point of just telling the flight computer to point prograde so that I could do things like interact with chat and not be overly concerned about actually flying the rocket, as I kind of took it as a given that this thing would just perform as well as it had in all previous iterations. Yeah, as you can tell by my foreboding, I did prove myself wrong at some point, so I will turn you over to Old Me for live coverage. Okay, way to go, flight computer. Oh, come on, what the hell? Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah, you just go right on ahead and boogie noodle all you want, friend. Excellent. Alright, resuming manual control, because KSP Flight Computer can obviously not handle its liquor. Yeah, we're one booster down, but I don't dare separate it because that's just an instant screw-up. And for some reason, our abort tower is what suffered. That makes a whole lot of sense. It's wobbling just a little bit. Something interesting happened. Yeah, the second I stopped paying attention. And the one part that failed is the abort tower. Well, and the booster. But I think that booster got hit by bits of the abort tower, which makes it extra stupid and interesting. It's a good thing this is not a live mission, but we'll see where we end up. Really, we just need to see what's left in the HG3 stage, which we shouldn't have to fire to hit orbit, although maybe a bird strike. That's a pretty high-flying birdie. Alright. Should be coming up on first stage booster sep any second now. It's been 1:50. Just wait for that booster to run dry. Did it? I can't tell. No, it's still running. It shouldn't be still running. No, that booster's definitely done. Oh no, it was not the first stage booster that got hit. Oh, that sucks. That sucks real bad. We're probably going to have to redo this simulation. It was the second stage booster that got hit. Saw the launch abort system wobble very much and it broke off for no reason. So you need an abort tower for the abort tower. It would appear so at this point. So I do want to check what happened. RD series was heated, yes. Structure procedural failed due to aerodynamic stresses. Oh, really? And then the set motors failed, and the Tiny Tim, blah, 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 blah. Everything exploded. Collided into tank procedural. Really? Set motor collided into RD-170. Collided into Tiny Tim. So they started hitting each other. That's extra interesting. Revert VAB. And for launch test 2, we're pretty much going to speed the whole thing up. Again, for frame rate issues, we did have a much more successful launch this time, as I took manual control for pretty much all of it, and you'll be delighted to know that this test went pretty swimmingly, actually. We were able to get into orbit. We did have to light our HG3, the Echo upper stage, in order to circularize our orbit, but it still did leave enough to transfer to either Mars or Venus with a few hundred, maybe even a kilometer per second of delta V left over to assist in a propulsive capture. Now, that is not exactly what this vehicle was designed to do. It was designed for entirely propulsive capture to avoid having to do a docking maneuver, spinning around and grabbing a heat shield and using that. We are avoiding atmospheric capture maneuvers with this vehicle because the tonnage, the mass is just too high for a capture at Mars. We could possibly use it at Venus, but the difference between deorbit and aero capture at Venus is insanely small. So while we are looking into that option for Venus missions, as it would provide us with a lot more flexibility as far as missions are concerned, we are currently considering making very small changes to the vehicle itself, maybe adjusting that second stage, or I guess third stage if you consider the core the second stage, the RS-25s to something with a little bit more oomph. See if we can't get rid of some of our steering losses during our path to orbit, and also maybe getting rid of some of this boogie noodle that we have seen here, although it is definitely not quite bad enough to be terminal. But we are almost ready to call this vehicle good to go. We do want to do a high orbit reentry test with the crewed portion, which basically means mating it to a DN5 and slingshotting it around the moon, or at least to a similar altitude, and seeing how well it handles reentry. And should that test pass, then we are go for construction for future Mars and Venus missions with this vehicle. Finally, it just took being able to have enough time to sit down and actually get things done to, get things done. So very small improvements will be coming to the vehicle itself, including some RCS balance passing, a few cosmetic changes, and general weight reduction as far as how much ablator we can pack onto the heat shield and still be safe, but that's pending that future test that I was just talking about. Also, radiators or insulating the liquid oxygen tank for the service module so as to prevent as much boil off as we can possibly stand, as after this launch test we did see rather significant boil off, which was alarming enough. And I guess if you watch the delta V figures here in this box closely enough, you can actually see the delta V from the crewed vehicle itself start to slowly tick down. So this project has had a few nicknames over the course of its development: Large Perseus, Bigger Perseus, Biggest Perseus, but I don't really feel like any of these names really suit the vehicle. So at least for the comment section of this video, if you have a suggestion for just the crewed portion, not the rocket itself, but the spacecraft vehicle, the part that we'll be sending to Venus and Mars, if you have a name suggestion for that, please do leave it in the comments below. I love taking suggestions from all of you lovely folks. It does help me name things because I am entirely not all that creative. The rocket is going to undergo a few more drastic changes. Like I said, this RS-25 stage will probably be getting some fairly serious adjustments made to it over the coming iterations, and so we will reserve naming that rocket until its final version and its maiden flight in the upcoming episodes. But yeah, like I said, so if you have name suggestions, please leave them for me for the crewed vehicle. We do need to give this thing a very appropriate name, considering its subsequent level of awesomeness and hard work that has gone into it over the course of many months at this point here on this channel. And yeah, so go ahead and leave those for me. Anyway, this is what I was talking about with the RS-25 stage. It just kind of lacks the thrust-to-weight ratio that we really kind of need at this point in our orbit. We have already started to fall back to Earth, and we're from about a 225-kilometer orbit, and just now peaking out at 1.03 with most of its delta V already spent. And considering the tonnage of our deliverable cargo, that probably needs a little bit of a change. If we could be a little more efficient on getting this section to orbit, maybe we could take a little bit more of that Echo upper stage with us, which would help spare the burden of the propulsive capture that is inevitable for this particular vehicle. But here you have it in its transferable state. This is what it'll be looking like as it departs Earth for distant points beyond, well, you know, Mars and Venus. And there's our camera change, indicating that we have almost hit orbit. We did need to pitch up quite a bit to get our periapsis out of the atmosphere for 460 by 145, which is absolutely terrible. But this is me checking in, seeing exactly how much liquid oxygen boil-off we were having, and how pervasive the problem had actually become. Just during the launch stage of this, we shed quite a few liters, I suppose, of liquid oxygen, which that's not good when you plan on being in deep space for half a year to a year at a time. We really need to make some changes in that regard. So I'll get right on those, and you can expect further updates on this vehicle in the coming episodes. So I guess that's where we're going to leave this one as we look at this entirely anemic flame. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it. And I will see all of you in the next one. So until then, see you later. Close. Let's hope staging is all set. See, that actually doesn't look stupid with that on top of it. Unlike it kind of looked really dumb with the old Perseus module up there. It was just like all of a sudden way too pointy. I just wonder if those side mount ones are going to clear the rest of the stack. Whoa, that's why it... Way to go, Chad. Way to go. Where are we going? We got 15 minutes to kill. Pluto landing. Yes. Oh, God. 500,000 right down the drain. It's going to take, like, a very successful 3 Kerbal to low Earth orbit to make up for this one botched simulation. I can't even sit here and waste my time with it. I really want to, though. I just want to see how far out we could go, but